Hey, I'm back. I wanted to talk a little bit today, some more about some of my weird coworkers. But actually, what I want to talk about in this video is not even really so much about the weirdness of the coworkers as it is about inappropriate behaviors in the workplace, like sexual harassment. I think for the most part, people know how to conduct themselves and behave appropriately, but you do have a few outliers who don't know how to act. My managers, they crack me up because there have been several occasions where I may turn suddenly, abruptly, and almost accidentally bump into one of them, and you should see how they act. They do all types of acrobatic and athletic maneuvers just to avoid brushing up against me or just bumping into me. Not even really a major accident, just, gently bumping into someone. And to me it's hilarious, and I almost want to say, I don't have the cooties, but when I think about it, they're not really doing anything wrong, and they're just covering their ass. And I can't say that I blame them, because if you pay attention to what's going on with current events and the news in Hollywood and what has transpired with Harvey what's the guy's name? Harvey Weinstein, and how so many women have come out of the woodwork to make allegations against him of sexual misconduct and sexual harassment. I don't blame them, because you have to protect yourself, and no one wants to be accused of doing anything wrong, because that's your reputation at stake, your reputation and your livelihood. And for the most part, I do support these women, these victims, and I think that at least 80% of them are 100% honest about their experiences and the fact that they felt violated in some way. But then by the same token, I do think that there are a small amount of people who are just jumping on the bandwagon and making accusations, false accusations, for the sake of garnering attention and just making much ado about nothing. I think it's kind of unfair that some of these people have lost their jobs. I mean, I don't know how thorough of an investigation that some of these people have been subjected to, but in some ways, I think it's not right that some of these people have lost their jobs or been released from lucrative contracts because of allegations of misconduct. So hopefully, the ones that have lost their jobs or been asked to resign, hopefully that there was strong enough evidence or compelling enough evidence for them to be asked to leave or to have them fired. I don't say all of this to minimize the experiences of the victims, because I do believe that we do have to hear them out and take what they say seriously, because you never know. If it weren't for the fact that I have been subjected to sexual misconduct and harassment, I probably wouldn't even believe some of these people. I'd probably be somewhat skeptical about some of the accusations that have been made. But like I said, I've been there and done that, so I know that even though it's not logical, and you wouldn't expect for a person who is in a position of leadership or authority to act that way, I know that it can happen, and it does happen a lot more often than we may want to think it does. I've been harassed more than a few times by some of my supervisors in the past, so I can speak from experience. Several years ago, there was this older guy, probably in his early to mid 50s, Peruvian, married with children, and this guy was, I'm going to just call it like I see it. The guy was a fucking pervert. At first, he started off kind of rude, and I had to put him in his place a few times. And the funny thing about this guy, he told me that he came here from Peru when he was in his early 20s. And he went to college and got a couple of degrees and was able to work his way up the ladder and to have a fairly successful career. The weird thing about this guy is that as long as he has been in this country, in the United States, the man can barely speak English. It's like he's stuck in the present progressive tense. That's like the verbs. He has a problem with properly conjugating verbs. And every verb that he says is in present progressive tense. Those are the ing words. For example, he'd say things to me like, honey, because he liked to call me honey. Honey, doing this for me. Or, honey, making this phone call for me. And I just thought that was so peculiar. I understand that it's hard for people who are learning a new language as an adult to assimilate and grasp certain concepts. But you would think that after so much time living in the United States, he'd be well beyond basic English or Esau English. But that wasn't the case for him. So anyway, I had to put him in his place a few times. Like, he came to me. I remember this one particular occasion, he approached me and was trying to rush me to hurry up and do some work. And I like to take my time and work at a pace that I can handle so that I won't make any mistakes. And I like to be focused on what I'm doing. And he came over there disturbing me and trying to rush me. So I was like, man, if you don't get your non-English speaking ass out of my face, I'd know something. But that was kind of sort of the relationship that we had. He would he would know when to back away from me sometimes. But after my first 3 or 4 months of working there, he began to say some increasingly inappropriate things to me. There was this one time where he had asked me, where do you live and how much is your rent? And I'm like, why the hell are you asking me how much my rent is? Are you going to pay my rent? And he said, no. I said, well, if you're not going to pay my rent, then you don't need to know how much my rent is. Then he went from those types of questions to asking me more intimate stuff like, well, do you have a boyfriend? Are you married? And I didn't mind answering that, but then he took it to the next level and started saying things like, I like to come over, and I would turn him down. I'd turn him down from trying to invite himself over to my place. And this dude was relentless. He went from that to becoming more explicit and saying exactly what he wanted to do to me. Like, I don't want to get too explicit and vulgar, but once he told me that he wanted me to sit on his face and so he could do oral sex on me. And I was just repulsed and disgusted. I told him to leave me alone, and unless he had anything to say to me that was work related, to just leave me alone and don't say nothing to me. But he would leave me alone for probably maybe a month or so at a time, and then he'd start back up with his comments. And I was fairly new there, and being that I was a new kid on the block, I felt a little bit intimidated and didn't want to make any waves. So I should have complained on him, but I didn't. I decided not to, because I was thinking that I didn't want anything. I didn't want to come across like a troublemaker, and I also didn't want to potentially see the man lose his job. So I endured it, although I should not have, because no one should be ever put in a situation to have to endure something like that. That could interfere when you're being harassed regularly like that. It can interfere with your job performance, and impact the quality of your work. I mean, I do kind of carry somewhat, even though I felt like I was I was doing the right thing at the time. When I look back, when I think about it in retrospect, that was the wrong thing to do. I should have complained immediately, but I let it go on for a few years, and then finally I just reached a point where I had enough. I went and I confided in another coworker. She was basically the person who I spoke to was on the same level as this guy, and she wasn't my direct supervisor, but she had basically the same amount of seniority as him. She was like, I guess you could say, second in charge on that shift. So I went to her, and I didn't name him directly, but by the time I finished describing some of the details of what I had been going through, she knew who I was talking about without me even calling out his name. So I asked her, what should I do? I really don't want to complain, because I know if I complain, they're probably going to put something in my file that's going to follow me from this place to other places where I may want to work. Then at the same time, I don't want to see the man get fired, because I know that he has a wife and kids that he's financially responsible for. So I was trying to look out for his family as well, which really wasn't my problem. She told me, okay, well, if you don't want to complain, then the next time he approaches you, disrespectfully, tell him right there on the spot that if he continues with his behavior, that you will report him. If it continues, then you got to stand firm and report him. I decided to take her advice, but the thing is, after I spoke to her about that, I had no more problems from him. So apparently, she must have either spoke to him directly about it and warned him to stop, or she might have went to our supervisor who's over him and said something about it, and maybe the supervisor went and talked to him and put him in his place. That's all it took for me to fix that situation, and I should have did it a lot sooner rather than put up with his shit for almost 2 years. It's just amazing to me that someone who has so much to lose would risk it all just for the chance to have a fling or a sexual rendezvous with a person who they barely know. And it's just also disgusting, the fact that this guy is married and has children. Even more disgusting to me, because he was talking about doing things to me. I mean, he was talking about doing oral sex on me, and this guy barely knew anything about me. He didn't know anything about my sexual proclivities. He didn't know how many sex partners I have. He didn't know whether or not I had any diseases, but he was willing to go down on me and eat me out, all kind of this nastiness. I feel sorry for whoever he's married to, because if he was so bold with approaching me and trying to proposition me for sex, God only knows how many other women he may have propositioned in the past and had sex with. I wouldn't be surprised if he brought home the sexually transmitted diseases to his poor wife. I kind of feel a little bit guilty about that too, because I think she has a right to know that her husband is cheating on her, or is a nasty fucker who thinks with his little head instead of his brain. Those are just some thoughts. I'll holler at y'all in another video.